The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky landscape of New Haven as Jake Morrison checked the daily reports. The mining colony was small, just 200 people trying to make a living on this remote world. Jake had been running things here for 3 years, and most days were routine. Today would be different. Lisa Yang wiped sweat from her forehead as she climbed out of the survey vehicle. She was the colony's best geologist, always eager to explore new areas for mineral deposits. Her team had been mapping the Southern Canyon system for weeks, looking for rare earth elements that could make New Haven profitable. "Boss, you need to see this," called out her assistant, Danny Cruz. He was standing at the edge of a deep ravine, pointing downward with excitement. Lisa grabbed her climbing gear and rappelled down to where Danny was waiting. At the bottom of the canyon sat a ship unlike anything Lisa had ever seen. It was not human-made, that much was clear. The vessel was organic-looking, with smooth curves and a surface that seemed to shift color in the light. Parts of it were badly damaged, as if it had crashed hard. "Should we call this in?" Danny asked nervously. Lisa was already activating her comm unit. "Jake, this is Lisa. We found something big. Really big. You need to get Dr. Price out here right away." Within 2 hours, a team had assembled at the crash site. Dr. Alan Price, the colony's xenobiologist, was practically vibrating with excitement. Security Chief Maria Santos looked less thrilled. She kept her hand near her weapon as they approached the alien ship. "The hull is partially breached here," Lisa pointed out. "We can get inside if we're careful." Maria went first, scanner in hand. The ship's interior was dim and filled with strange, sweet-smelling air. Bioluminescent panels provided soft blue light along curved corridors. Everything seemed grown rather than built. They found the cubs in what appeared to be a sleeping chamber. 6 small creatures lay huddled together on soft, moss-like bedding. They looked like a cross between wolves and big cats with silver fur that caught the light. Each was about the size of a human child, but clearly not human. Their breathing was shallow and several appeared to be near death. "My God," whispered Dr. Price, "they're just children." The smallest one, with the brightest blue eyes Lisa had ever seen, lifted its head weakly when they entered. It made a soft sound, almost like a whimper, and Lisa felt something tug at her heart. "We have to help them," she said without thinking. Maria frowned. "We don't know what they are or where they came from. This could be dangerous." But Dr. Price was already running scans with his medical equipment. "They're severely malnourished and dehydrated. Whatever they are, they're dying." Jake arrived just as they were carefully moving the cubs to the medical bay back at the colony. The smallest one, which the colonists had already started calling Blue because of his eyes, seemed the weakest. He barely responded when Dr. Price tried to examine him. "Can you save them?" Jake asked. "I think so, but I need time to figure out their biology. Their cellular structure is unlike anything in our databases." Over the next few days, the colony watched as Dr. Price worked around the clock. The cubs were kept in the medical bay, receiving fluids and nutrients through carefully calibrated IV lines. Slowly, they began to recover. Pete Johnson, one of the maintenance workers, found himself drawn to the medical bay during his off hours. He was a quiet man who preferred machines to people, but something about the cubs fascinated him. Especially Blue, who seemed to watch everything with those bright, intelligent eyes. "They're not just animals," Pete told Jake during one of his visits. "Look at how they watch us. They're thinking." Jake had noticed it too. The cubs observed everything with careful attention. They seemed to understand that the humans were helping them, and they showed no fear or aggression. On the 5th day, something extraordinary happened. Blue, who had been the weakest, suddenly sat up and looked directly at Dr. Price. Then, clear as day, a voice spoke inside the doctor's head. "Thank you for helping us." Dr. Price nearly dropped his scanner. Did anyone else hear that? The other cubs were stirring now, all looking at the humans with those bright eyes. More voices appeared in their minds, young and confused but unmistakably intelligent. "Where is our pack leader? Why did the Alpha leave us here? We were supposed to wait, but it has been so long." Lisa, who had been visiting regularly, felt tears in her eyes as the mental voices reached her. These were children, scared and abandoned, trying to understand why their family had left them. Over the following days, the cubs slowly shared their story. They spoke of their pack leader, a great alpha who had brought them to this world during what they called the hunt. They were supposed to wait in the ship while the alpha explored, but something had gone wrong. The ship had crashed and the alpha had not returned. The cubs had been alone for months, surviving on emergency supplies that had finally run out. They spoke of their people, the Kithara, as great hunters who traveled between stars. Their pack was their family and the Alpha was everything to them. But as the days passed, something else became clear. The cubs were forming new bonds with their human rescuers. Blue spent most of his time with Pete, following him around the maintenance shops and showing remarkable interest in how things worked. The largest cub, who they named Storm, seemed drawn to Maria and her security training. The others formed similar attachments. Luna, a female with distinctive white markings, helped Dr. Price in the medical bay. The twins, Sky and River, were always together and seemed fascinated by the colony's farming operations. Frost, the eldest and most serious, often sat with Jake during administrative meetings, watching and learning. The colonists found themselves growing attached to their unusual guests. The cubs were intelligent, curious, and surprisingly gentle despite their predatory appearance. They learned human customs quickly and seemed eager to help with daily tasks. But as the cubs grew stronger and more confident, troubling questions remained. Why had their alpha abandoned them? What were the Kithra really doing out among the stars? And most importantly, what would happen when their people eventually came looking for them? Jake filed his reports with Earth Command, but New Haven was months away from the nearest major colony. For now, they were on their own with 6 alien cubs who were quickly becoming part of their community. None of them suspected that those cubs had been left behind for a very specific reason, or that their rescue was about to change everything for both species. 6 months had passed since the rescue, and New Haven had changed in ways no one could have imagined. The cubs were no longer the weak, dying creatures they had found in the crashed ship. They had grown rapidly, now standing nearly as tall as adult humans, their silver fur thick and healthy. Blue had become Pete's constant companion in the engineering sections. The young Kithara showed an amazing ability to understand complex machinery, often solving problems that had puzzled human technicians for days. His telepathic abilities had grown stronger too, allowing him to communicate complex ideas directly into Pete's mind. "Hand me that plasma coupler," Pete said, not bothering to look up from the generator he was repairing. Blue's mental voice responded with amusement. "The blue cylinder or the red one?" "The blue one, obviously," Pete grinned. After months of working together, they had developed an easy partnership that made other colonists envious. Storm had found her place with Maria Santos in the security department. The female Kethra was larger and more aggressive than her siblings, with natural hunting instincts that Maria was carefully channeling into protective skills. Storm learned weapons handling quickly and showed tactical thinking that impressed even Maria's military background. "Your stance is off," Storm's mental voice critiqued as Maria practiced with a new rifle design. "Humans always lean too far forward. Trust your balance." Maria adjusted her position and found her accuracy improved immediately. "How do you know that?" "Kithara are born hunters. We see how bodies move, where strength comes from. Humans fight with tools and thinking. We fight with instinct and pack coordination." Luna spent her days in the medical bay with Dr. Price, showing an intuitive understanding of biology that amazed the doctor. She could sense illness in humans before scanners detected it, and her gentle touch seemed to calm patients in ways that no human medical technique could match. The twins, Sky and River, worked with the agricultural teams and had revolutionized food production. Their ability to sense the health of plants and soil had increased crop yields by 30%. They moved together like parts of the same organism, finishing each other's thoughts and working in perfect harmony. Frost, the eldest and most serious of the cubs, had become Jake's unofficial assistant. The young Kithara observed human leadership and administration with intense interest, asking penetrating questions about colony management and human social structures. "Why do humans vote on decisions?" Frost asked during one of their evening discussions. "In Kithara packs, the Alpha decides everything. It is more efficient." Jake considered the question carefully. "Efficiency isn't everything, Frost. When people have a say in decisions, they feel ownership. They work harder to make things succeed because they helped choose the direction. But what if they choose wrong? Then we all learn from the mistake together, and we're stronger for it next time." These conversations were becoming more frequent and more complex. The cubs were not just learning human skills, they were beginning to understand human values. Concepts like democracy, Individual choice and cooperation between equals were foreign to their pack-based society, but they were adapting in remarkable ways. The changes weren't just in the cubs. The human colonists had also adapted to their new reality. Families had informally adopted the young Kythera, creating mixed households that functioned surprisingly well. Children played with cubs who could outrun and outfight any human, but who were gentle and protective with their smaller playmates. The peaceful routine was shattered when Captain Roy Blake arrived with the monthly supply run from Earth. His ship, the merchant vessel Wanderer, carried more than just supplies this time. Roy's face was grim as he met with Jake in the administration building. "I've got bad news, Jake, real bad news." Roy spread out star charts showing the local sector. Red markers indicated recent attacks on human settlements and shipping lanes. 7 colonies have gone dark in the past 4 months. 3 cargo convoys destroyed with no survivors. Whatever's doing this, they're good at it. Professional. Jake studied the markers, noting the pattern. Any idea who's responsible? Unknown alien species. Ships don't match any known designs. But here's the scary part. The attacks show coordinated pack tactics. These aren't random raids. Someone's hunting us systematically. At the mention of pack tactics, Jake felt a chill. He called for the cubs to join the meeting, and their reaction confirmed his worst fears. When the cubs saw the attack patterns on the star charts, they became agitated. Blue's mental voice was tight with anxiety as he shared the information with his siblings. "This is Kythera work," Storm said aloud, her first words spoken rather than telepathically communicated. The effort of forming human sounds made her voice rough, but the meaning was clear. Dr. Price leaned forward. "You know who's doing this?" Frost, always the most serious, answered for them all. "We know because this is what our people do. This is why we were left on this world." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Captain Blake was the first to speak. "You're saying these cubs are connected to the raiders?" Blue stepped forward, his mental voice reaching everyone in the room simultaneously. "We were not abandoned by accident. Cubs are left on worlds to learn, to watch, to prepare. When we are ready, the pack returns to claim what we have scouted." Luna's gentle mental touch carried deep sadness. "We were supposed to study human weaknesses, learn your defenses, map your settlements, then call our pack home to conquer." The revelation hit the colonists like a physical blow. Maria's hand moved instinctively to her weapon, then stopped as she looked at Storm's stricken face. "But that was before," Storm said quickly, "before we understood what humans really are." River spoke for the first time anyone could remember, her mental voice small and confused. "Before we learned about families that choose each other instead of just following the strongest." Sky completed his twin's thought. "Before we understood that strength can come from protecting instead of conquering." Jake looked around the room at the faces of his people. Some showed fear, others anger, but most showed the same confusion he felt. These cubs had become part of their families, their community. The idea that they were connected to the attacks was difficult to process. "What happens when your pack returns?" Jake asked quietly. Frost's answer chilled them all. "They will expect us to have weakened you from within, to have learned your military capabilities and found ways to disable your defenses. They will expect us to help them hunt humans." Blue stepped closer to Pete, who instinctively put a protective hand on the young Kythera's shoulder. "But we will not do this. We are not the same cubs who were left here. We have learned something our people do not understand." "What's that?" Pete asked. "We have learned that there is more than one kind of pack, and we have chosen ours. The implications of that choice would soon be tested in ways none of them could imagine." The news about the cubs' true origins spread through New Haven like wildfire. Within hours, the entire colony knew that their adopted alien children were connected to the raiders who had been destroying human settlements across the sector. The reaction was immediate and divided. Dan Kelly, the mining foreman, called for an emergency colony meeting. His voice was loud and angry as he addressed the packed community center. "We've been harboring enemy spies. These creatures have been studying us, learning our weaknesses, preparing for an invasion. How do we know they haven't already called their people here?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through part of the crowd. Fear was a powerful emotion, and the revelation had shaken many colonists to their core. But Pete Johnson stood up from where he had been sitting with Blue at his side. His voice was quiet but firm. "Blue saved my life last month when that power coupling exploded. He pushed me out of the way and got burned himself." "Does that sound like enemy behavior to you?" Dr. Price nodded agreement. Luna has been helping me treat patients for months. She's shown more compassion for sick humans than some humans do. Maria Santos stood next with Storm beside her. Storm has been training to protect this colony. She's learned our security protocols not to exploit them, but to strengthen them. The argument continued for hours. Some colonists wanted the cubs contained or sent away. Others refused to abandon the young Kithara who had become part of their families. Jake found himself in the impossible position of trying to hold the community together while facing an unprecedented threat. It was Frost who finally ended the debate. The eldest cub moved to the center of the room and spoke aloud, his rough voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. "We understand your fear. We understand your anger. Our people are coming and they are dangerous. But we are not our people anymore." Blue joined his sibling, followed by the others. They stood together facing the colonists who had become their families. 6 months ago, we were Kithra cubs following pack law and alpha commands. Blue's mental voice reached everyone present. Today we are something new. We are New Haven Pack. We are your pack. Luna stepped forward, her gentle mental touch filled with emotion. You saved us when we were dying. You fed us, healed us, gave us homes and families. Kithra law says we owe loyalty to the pack that protects us. Storm's mental voice was fierce with determination. New Haven protected us. New Haven is our pack now. We will fight for our pack. The twins spoke in unison, their combined mental voice strong and clear. We choose humans. We choose family that cares instead of commands. We choose you. The colony fell silent as the weight of the cubs' declaration sank in. Dan Kelly started to object, but Jake raised his hand for silence. The question isn't whether we trust them, Jake said finally. The question is whether we're going to act like humans or like cowards. These kids are asking us to accept them as family, even though they know it might mean fighting their own people. Are we really going to turn our backs on children who need us? The vote, when it came, was closer than Jake would have liked, but clear enough. The cubs would stay. They would be treated as full members of the community, and together they would prepare for what was coming. The preparation began immediately. The cubs shared everything they knew about Kithara tactics, technology, and psychology. The information was both valuable and terrifying. Kithara packs are built around the Alpha, Frost explained during one of their planning sessions. The Alpha is the strongest, fastest, smartest. All others follow without question. Pack members will die rather than disobey. Storm added her knowledge of Kithara combat methods. They fight as coordinated units. Each pack member knows their role perfectly. They use speed, strength, and pack coordination to overwhelm opponents quickly. Blue's technical knowledge proved invaluable as he and Pete began designing defenses that could counter Kithara advantages. Their ships are grown, not built. Biotechnology responds differently to damage than mechanical systems. Certain frequencies can disrupt their control systems. Luna provided medical intelligence that chilled Dr. Price. Kithara use bioweapons designed specifically for each target species. They would have been developing anti-human agents since they first encountered your people. The most disturbing revelation came from studying the attack patterns Captain Blake had shown them. The cubs recognized the tactical signature immediately. This is our Alpha's work, Frost said with certainty. These attack patterns match his hunting style perfectly. He is the one leading the raids. Your father? Dr. Price asked gently. Our pack leader, Blue corrected. Alpha is not family in the way humans understand. Alpha is the strongest. Alpha commands. Alpha owns the pack. Storm's mental voice carried old pain. We were useful to him as scouts. When we are no longer useful, we will be replaced or eliminated. As the weeks passed, long-range sensors began detecting movement at the edge of the system. Ships were coming and they matched no known human configurations. The Kithara fleet was approaching. Jake made the difficult decision to evacuate non-essential personnel. Families with young children, elderly colonists, and anyone not critical to the defense would leave on the next supply ship. About half the colony chose to go. Those who stayed began intensive training. The cubs taught colonists how to think like Kithara, how to move in coordinated units, how to use speed and teamwork to overcome stronger opponents. But the most important preparation was psychological. The cubs worked to help humans understand pack dynamics and hierarchy. This knowledge would be crucial in the coming conflict. Kithara respect strength and leadership, Frost explained. But they have never encountered a pack that includes multiple species working as equals. This will confuse them. Storm demonstrated combat techniques that combined human tactical thinking with Kithara instincts. Humans fight with tools and planning. Kithara fight with instinct and coordination. Together we can do both. Blue and Pete had developed new weapons and defensive systems that merged human technology with Kithara bioengineering principles. The results were unlike anything either species had created alone. 3 days before the fleet arrived, the Cubs made a request that surprised everyone. They wanted combat armor, designed specifically for their physiology but built using human materials and techniques. "We want to look like what we have become," Blue explained as Pete took measurements. Not fully human, not fully Kithara. Something new. The armor Pete designed was a masterpiece of form and function. It enhanced the Cubs' natural abilities while providing protection and integrated weapon systems. When the Cubs first put on their armor, the transformation was remarkable. They looked like warriors from a future where species boundaries had been transcended. Human technology merged with Kithara grace and power. They moved with predatory elegance, but their eyes held human compassion and determination. As the Kithara fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, New Haven was as ready as it could be. The colonists had organized into defensive units that mixed humans and Cubs in ways that maximized both species' strengths. The Cubs stood with their human families, wearing armor that symbolized their transformation from abandoned scouts to protectors of their chosen pack. They were no longer the creatures their alpha had left behind. They were something entirely new, and they were about to face the test that would determine the future of both species. The Kithara fleet emerged from hyperspace like hunting predators materializing from shadow. 12 massive bioships hung in space above New Haven, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of power and ancient authority. Each vessel dwarfed anything humanity had ever built, grown rather than constructed, alive rather than mechanical. Jake Morrison stood in the colony's command center, watching the sensor displays with a mixture of awe and terror. Beside him, the Cubs studied their people's ships with expressions he couldn't read. 12 warships, Frost said quietly. A full hunting pack. The Alpha brought everything. The communication array crackled to life, filled with a presence that seemed to press against their minds like a physical weight. When the Alpha's voice spoke, it bypassed their equipment entirely, transmitted directly into the consciousness of every person on New Haven. "Cubs of the 23rd Pack, your Alpha has returned. Report to the pack ship immediately for debriefing and assignment to the hunt." The voice carried absolute authority, the kind of command that had never been questioned in thousands of years of Kithara society. Jake felt the weight of it himself, an almost irresistible urge to obey and submit. But the Cubs' response was not what their Alpha expected. Blue stepped forward to the communication console, his armored form gleaming under the command center lights. When he spoke, his mental voice was broadcast on all frequencies, reaching both the human colony and the Kithara fleet. "This is Blue of the New Haven Pack. We acknowledge the Alpha's presence, but we do not acknowledge the Alpha's authority over us." The silence that followed was absolute. In the history of the Kithara species, no Cub had ever refused a direct Alpha command. The concept was so foreign that it took several moments for the Alpha to respond. When he did, his mental voice shook with rage. "You dare refuse your pack leader? You dare disobey the one who sired you and raised you for the hunt?" Storm joined her brother at the console, her armor enhancing her already impressive presence. "We were not raised by you. We were abandoned by you. We found a new pack, one that values us for what we are, not just for what we can provide." Luna's gentle mental touch carried sadness but also determination. "You left us to die, Alpha. The humans saved us. They fed us, healed us, gave us homes and families. Pack law says we owe loyalty to those who protect us." The twins spoke together, their combined mental voice strong and unwavering. "We choose the pack that chose us first." Frost, as the eldest, delivered the final declaration. "We are no longer Cubs of the 23rd Pack. We are the New Haven Pack. We protect our territory and our family." The Alpha's response was immediate and violent. Energy beams lanced down from the bioships, striking at the colony's defensive positions. But the defenses had been designed by minds that understood both human technology and Kithara tactics. Underground bunkers absorbed the initial bombardment, while dispersed weapons platforms began returning fire. The colonists had learned to think like Kithara, spreading their forces and using hit-and-run tactics that confused the traditionally hierarchical alien command structure. Blue coordinated the technological defenses from the command center, while Pete managed the power distribution systems they had designed together. Their partnership had produced weapons that merged human innovation with Kithara bioengineering, creating effects that surprised both species. Maria Santos led a mixed unit of humans and cubs in a counterattack against the Alpha's landing forces. Storm moved beside her with fluid grace, her armor enhancing natural abilities that already surpassed human limitations. Together, they demonstrated tactics that neither species had developed alone. The Alpha himself came down to the surface, leading his pack in a direct assault on the colony's central district. He was a massive creature, standing 8 feet tall with silver fur marked by the scars of countless battles. His presence radiated the kind of dominance that had never been successfully challenged. When he saw Blue approaching in his human-designed armor, the Alpha's fury reached new heights. "Look what they have done to you." The Alpha's mental voice dripped with disgust. "Corrupted with alien metal, poisoned with their weak ideas of cooperation and choice. You were meant to be pure hunters, not these hybrid abominations." Blue stopped 20 feet away, his armor systems humming with power. "We were meant to be scouts for your conquest. Instead, we became protectors of our chosen family. We learned that strength comes from more than just dominance. Strength comes from pack unity under Alpha leadership," the Alpha snarled. "You have forgotten the first law of our people." "No," Storm said, moving to stand beside Blue. "We have learned that there can be more than one kind of pack." Luna joined them, followed by the twins and Frost. They stood together, not in the submissive formation their Alpha expected, but as equals united in purpose. Behind them came their human packmates. Pete stood with Blue, his own armor marking him as a warrior despite his engineer's background. Maria flanked Storm, her weapon ready but her stance protective rather than aggressive. Dr. Price moved beside Luna, and the farmers stood with Sky and River. The Alpha saw something that shattered his understanding of the natural order. Humans and Kithara standing together as equals, each protecting the others, each contributing their strengths to the whole. "This is impossible," he whispered, his mental voice carrying shock that reached both species. "Kithara do not serve other species. We conquer. We dominate. We hunt." "That's where you're wrong," Jake Morrison said, stepping forward despite having no enhanced abilities or advanced armor. "They don't serve us and we don't serve them. We're family." The word hit the Alpha like a physical blow. Family was not a concept that existed in Kithara society. Packs were functional units organized around strength and utility. The idea of bonds based on choice and mutual care was incomprehensible, but it was about to become very real. The Alpha launched himself at Blue with the speed and fury that had made him the dominant leader of his pack. His attack was perfectly calculated to overwhelm and subdue a subordinate cub who should have submitted immediately. Instead, he found himself facing an opponent who combined Kithara instincts with human tactical training, enhanced abilities with technological augmentation, and most importantly, the support of a pack that fought as true equals. Blue didn't fight alone. As the Alpha closed distance, Storm provided covering fire while Luna coordinated medical support. The twins moved to flank the Alpha while Frost managed overall tactical coordination, and the humans fought beside them, not as servants or masters but as packmates contributing their own strengths to the battle. The Alpha had never faced anything like it. Every attack was countered not just by his opponent, but by a coordinated response from multiple species working in perfect harmony. When he tried to use his superior size and strength to overwhelm Blue, Pete's technological innovations evened the odds. When he attempted to employ pack intimidation tactics, Maria's military training provided countermeasures. For the first time in his long life, the Alpha found himself being outfought by cubs he had abandoned, and aliens he had intended to conquer. The realization that his fundamental understanding of power and pack dynamics might be wrong would prove to be the beginning of something unprecedented in Kithara history. The battle in New Haven's central square was unlike anything either species had ever witnessed. The Alpha, who had dominated every fight in his long life through sheer power and pack hierarchy, found himself struggling against opponents who refused to follow the rules he understood. Blue moved with fluid grace, his armor amplifying natural Kithara abilities while adding human technological advantages. But more importantly, he fought as part of a coordinated team where every member contributed equally. When the Alpha's massive claws raked across Blue's armor, Pete was already there with covering fire from weapons they had designed together. "This is not how combat works," the Alpha roared, his mental voice filled with confusion and rage. "Cubs submit to Alphas. Lesser species serve greater ones. This cooperation is weakness, then why are you losing?" Storm asked, her mental voice calm as she coordinated flanking movements with Maria. Her armor allowed her to move with inhuman speed while Maria's tactical training provided the strategic thinking that made each movement devastatingly effective. The Alpha spun to face this new threat, but found Luna and Dr. Price working together to deploy countermeasures against his bioweapon attacks. The doctor's medical knowledge combined with Luna's intuitive understanding of Cathara physiology had produced defenses the Alpha couldn't overcome. Around the central battle, other conflicts raged as young Kithara from the invasion fleet faced the reality of cubs who fought alongside aliens as equals. Many had never seen cooperation between species before, and the sight shook their understanding of natural order. Some of the younger Kithara began to hesitate in their attacks. They watched cubs they had known since birth moving in perfect coordination with humans, protecting and being protected in turn. The rigid hierarchy they had always known seemed suddenly questionable. The turning point came when the Alpha, desperate to reassert his dominance, launched a devastating attack at Pete. The human engineer had no enhanced abilities, no supernatural speed or strength. By all Cathara logic, he should have been an easy target. But Blue moved to intercept, taking the full force of the Alpha's claws across his armored chest. The impact sent him flying, his armor sparking and damaged. As he struggled to rise, Pete was already moving to help, heedless of the danger to himself. "You would risk your life for a lesser being?" the Alpha demanded, his mental voice filled with incomprehension. Pete looked up at the massive alien who towered over them both. His voice was steady despite his fear. "He's not a lesser being. He's my family." The word hit the Alpha like a physical blow, just as it had earlier, but this time he saw the reality of it demonstrated. A human with no special abilities willingly risking himself to protect a Cathara, not out of pack hierarchy or dominance, but out of genuine care. Blue struggled to his feet, leaning on Pete for support. "This is what you cannot understand, Alpha. Strength that comes from choice, not command. Power that comes from protection, not domination." Storm joined them, her armor battered but her stance defiant. "You made us strong by abandoning us, but the humans made us family by choosing us." Luna moved beside her siblings, her gentle mental touch reaching out to the conflicted young Cathara watching from the sidelines. "There is another way to live, a way where strength serves love instead of conquest." The twins spoke in unison, their combined mental voice carrying across the battlefield. "We learned that packs can be built on trust instead of fear." Frost, bloodied but unbowed, delivered the final challenge. "You came here expecting to find weak cubs who had mapped human vulnerabilities for your conquest. Instead, you found something your people have never seen. A pack that transcends species, a family that chooses its members." The Alpha looked around at the battlefield, seeing his invasion force halted by coordination he couldn't comprehend. Young Kithara stood frozen, watching cubs fight alongside humans as equals. His absolute authority, maintained for decades through strength and intimidation, was cracking under the weight of an idea he had never encountered. "This is impossible," he whispered, his mental voice carrying across both armies. "Cathara do not bond with prey species. We conquer. We dominate. We do not serve." "We don't serve," Blue said, rising to his full height despite his injuries. "And neither do they. We choose each other. We protect each other. We fight together." The Alpha's next attack was born of desperation rather than strategy. He launched himself at the group of humans and cubs, seeking to destroy this impossible cooperation through sheer violence. But the New Haven pack moved as one. Blue and Storm provided the physical response while Maria and Pete contributed tactical support. Luna and Dr. Price managed defensive countermeasures, while the twins coordinated with their human farm team partners to control the battlefield environment. The Alpha found himself overwhelmed not by superior force, but by a type of coordination his species had never developed. Every move was countered by multiple opponents working in perfect harmony. Every attack was met by defenses that combined the best of both species. When the Alpha finally fell, it was not to a single opponent, but to the combined efforts of an entirely new kind of pack. He lay on the ground, defeated not just physically but intellectually. Everything he thought he knew about power and hierarchy had been proven wrong. Blue stood over his former pack leader, his armor damaged but his presence strong. By Kithra law, the alpha who fails in hunt and combat may be challenged. I claim leadership of this pack. The traditional words carried across the battlefield, reaching every Kithra in the invasion force. But what Blue did next had never been done in their species' history. I claim leadership, but I do not claim dominance. Any Kithra who wishes to learn cooperation instead of conquest may join the New Haven pack. Any who prefer the old ways may leave in peace. The silence that followed was profound. Young Kithra looked at each other, then at the humans who had fought beside cubs as equals. Many had never imagined that aliens could be anything other than prey or rivals. Slowly, tentatively, several young Kithara approached the mixed group of humans and cubs. They moved cautiously, unsure how to interact with aliens as potential equals rather than subjects. Luna stepped forward, her gentle mental touch offering reassurance. There is room in our pack for all who wish to protect rather than conquer. Over the following hours, nearly 50 young Kithara chose to remain on New Haven. They handed over their weapons and submitted to Blue's leadership, but the submission was different from traditional Kithara hierarchy. It was based on respect and choice rather than fear and dominance. The remaining Kithara departed with their bioships, carrying word of what they had witnessed to the rest of their species. Some would dismiss the reports as impossible. Others would be curious about this new form of pack structure. But the seeds of change had been planted. Jake Morrison stood in his rebuilt command center 3 months later, reading the latest reports from Earth Command. More colonies were reporting contact with individual Kithara, who seemed different from the raiders. Young ones who spoke of cooperation and choice, who offered their services as protectors, rather than demanding submission as conquerors. Outside his window, he could see the expanded settlement that New Haven had become. Human and Kithara children played together in the streets while mixed families went about their daily business. The colony had grown from 200 humans to nearly 1,000 beings of 2 species. Blue and Pete were working on new defensive systems, their partnership now formalized in an engineering firm that was attracting attention from across human space. Storm had established a security academy that trained mixed species teams in tactics that neither humans nor Kithara had developed alone. The cubs who had been abandoned to map human weaknesses had instead created something unprecedented. A society where 2 different species lived and worked as true equals, each contributing their strengths while compensating for the other's limitations. As Jake watched, Blue looked up from his work and waved at the office window. The young Kithara's mental voice carried clearly across the distance, warm with affection and respect. The alpha left his cubs unattended, but we didn't return wearing human armor. We returned as something entirely new. And indeed they had. The galaxy would never be quite the same.